Hi everyone, welcome to today's live session. We're going to be joined by my co-host Mridu Bajaj in a few seconds. Just gonna wait and let her get her patched in for you to join in. Mridu.
Hi. Hi, Aman. Hi again.
Hi. Hi again, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome officially to our conversation today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Super, thanks for taking out this time. And for the benefit of everyone joining, let me quickly tell them what we're going to be discussing today. So,
Okay.
this is a fireside chat on an extremely interesting topic, the myths around karma. Yes? So, I'm super excited. What about you, Mridul? Looking forward to
Okay.
talking
Abs-
about this.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics to discuss. So, yes, quite excited.
Lovely. So, for the benefit of everyone here, I'm going to quickly introduce you
Thank
and
you.
tell them that you are Mridu Bajaj and you are a serenity surrender healer. I will allow you to quickly tell us what that is about also in a bit.
Sure.
And for the benefit of those who are meeting me for the first time, my name is Aman Chandra and I am a bulletproof happiness coach and a motivational speaker. And today, Mridu and me are going to be talking to you about the interesting topic of how or what are the myths surrounding karma and how can you understand this much better. So I want to thank Mridu once again for taking out time and joining me for this session as my co-host.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I also want to tell everybody to stay with us till the end because we'll be taking questions in the end. And if
Yes.
people want, they can also join us live while they ask us their question. So that's about it. That's our agenda, and I'm super excited. We should get going then.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely. Let's start.
lovely, super. So let's begin with this topic, Midhu. So since we're going to be debunking the myths around karma,
Yes.
the first thing I want to ask you is that is there anything like karma? There are so many people. There's so many people who have this question that this
Hmm.
word is thrown around so much. Karma, the karmic effects, karmic repercussions. But is there something like karma?
Hmm.
How do you look at this?
Yeah. So, we have to be able to understand what karma really is. It's the word karma has become synonymous with either suffering or misery or past lives, and that's what we see it
Can I
as.
can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yes, sure, please
I
tell
think
me.
we lost you for a bit. So could you repeat once again what you were saying?
Yes, again, yes. So what I
Yeah,
was saying was, and let me know if I'm not audible in between. What I was
it's
saying
perfect
was
now.
that perfect. Thank you. So what I was saying was that karma has become synonymous with the word suffering or misery,
Right.
or past lives, and that's how we see
Okay.
it, right? So whenever we see someone suffering, we say, "Oh, this must be this person's bad karma, and that's why this person is suffering." Or when
Right.
something good happens to us, we say, "Oh, this must be my good karma, and that's why maybe this is either just luck or this is why I've attracted it." And
Got it.
yeah, and that's why a lot of people can't connect, and especially the fact that we associate it with past lives, and that's why a lot
Right.
of people can't associate with it, because they feel that I don't even know what I did in my past life, so how do I even
Right.
correct what I'm doing right now? How do I even associate with what I'm doing right now? So
Right.
actually, what is karma? Karma is actually our response to a situation. It is
Okay.
how we react to a situation, either through our actions, through our speech, or even through our thoughts. And that is
Okay.
how our karma, that's the basis of karma. So, to give you an example, let's say there is a girl, and
Okay.
she has a very, very close friend. And the relationship has been absolutely perfect, and they're like sisters. And one day, the girl starts experiencing that their friend is getting more and more distanced from her. Okay, and she
Okay.
starts feeling like, she's not able to understand what is happening, because everything was perfect till now, and now I feel that this person is going away from me. They're spending much less time with me. They're responding lesser to me. And in
Right.
that situation, there could be two ways of how a person responds to this. Either could be,
Okay.
one could be that the person understands and accepts that the friend is maybe at a juncture in their life wherein they need to focus on other things, and that's why they're not able to spend time with you, and
Fair
it
enough.
doesn't have anything to do with you. And the second could be, so in this situation the person just accepts the other person's choices and moves on, embraces their own choices in that situation, whatever it is, and then moves on. The
Right.
second could be that the person feels that this is unjustified. Either they start imposing themselves on the other person, forcing themselves upon the other person, or they start demeaning the other person, cuts them off. And sometimes, when something like this happens in close relationships, you also
Yeah.
we get into a completely negative cycle of also avenging the other person, demeaning the other person. So
Right.
just as an example, these are the two ways one could proceed with any new or unexpected situation that comes up in their life. And in the
Right.
situation, when we are able to accept the other person's choices as well as our new choices of how life is unfolding, we are able to
Right.
move peacefully. But when we get into this negative cycle of hurting the other person because we feel hurt by the other person, is when
Mm-hmm.
we start, uh, start this negative association with that other person. Okay,
Okay.
and that is when we start acting, get into this karmic contract with the other person. Okay,
Okay.
so right now, so that is when we will also form beliefs regarding friendship, and it being difficult to trust friends and stuff. And that's when we also, when we develop those beliefs, is when we start also blocking those aspects within us. Similarly,
Okay.
let me take another example. This is with regards to a person. Maybe with regards to
Hmm.
an aspect, we could see, that sometimes, how it happens that we see brothers fighting amongst each other for property or money,
Right.
and then we develop beliefs. We are a witness to that situation. We are not even involved in that situation, but we start developing these
Right.
beliefs that property is wrong. All that it creates is fights. All that money brings us is misery. And when we develop
Right.
those beliefs, that is when we start blocking those aspects within us, even though we could have
Okay.
dealt with those same situations differently. So karma
Right.
is actually how we respond to a particular situation, and it does
All
not have
right.
anything to do with a good deed or a bad deed.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I were to summarize, there is definitely something like karma. Is that a correct conclusion? There is something
Yes.
like karma, it does exist, and
Yes.
people should try and get accustomed to this fact that there is a certain law that we are talking about which is in existence, even if we cannot see it or feel it. But there is something like a karmic law. Is that correct?
Uh, Sort of. So actually, when we go on to looking further at the myths, we will understand how there are still ways we associate it with the creator, or we associate it with external factors, wherein we are the ones who are creating this negativity for ourselves, and we are the ones who also have the power to deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to say, how do we know all this? How do we respond to this? If they say, what's the proof that there's something like karma? Somebody might say
Oh.
there are good people out there who are suffering right now, like you said. And then
Yeah.
there are bad people out there who have done so much wrong, but they're
Yeah.
living a good life. So then where's the justice or where is the karma in this case? So how does
Right.
that work? What are your thoughts on that?
So again, let's come back to the same example that I gave. So actually, the purpose of the soul is to be in the physical realm or be on the earth planet and learn its lessons, evolve. We, if we look back at our life, we are not the same person as we were 10 years back. We've evolved in the way
Right,
we perceive the world, the way we perceive ourselves. So
right,
that is the natural process of a soul's journey. and we are constantly evolving. So now
Okay.
coming back to the same example of the girl and the friend, if we go to it, maybe that situation manifested because the girl was either ready to initiate contact with other people who she was maybe
Okay.
beforehand she would not have even thought of interacting with people other than her only friend that there was. Or she could, or it
Okay.
could also be that the lesson for her is to learn to support herself, so stand up for
Okay.
herself rather than being
Okay.
supported by her friend. So actually what happens is, whenever we are in our life, we are living our life, and then suddenly something happens that shakes our comfort zone, and
Right.
we say that, oh, this is unexpected, how do I deal with this, right?
Right.
So when something like this happens, actually we are ready to learn afresh about life or learn a new perspective about life, but we stop
Right.
that and we start blaming other people for whatever fears we are experiencing or whatever hurt we are experiencing, because we don't
Okay.
we start we lose the belief in our own empowerment. We stop believe that we
Okay.
are always complete and we are always empowered to deal with the situations that come up in our life. So
Right.
actually if we go on to the root of any situation, this is it. When something unexpected happens and we start blaming the other person, is when we actually create that separation and karma. Otherwise,
Got
if
it.
we see, everybody has their own right and wrong, and there
Okay.
is no absolute right or wrong in the world. It's
Right.
only, yeah, when we feel hurt we'll call the other person wrong, and like I said, you can go to any lengths to blame the other person, to also the level where we start avenging the person, and then we create this vicious cycle of shame and guilt, and then again avenging the person, and again getting into shame,
Right.
which then contributes to like just like it just exponentially it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the only
Right.
person who's getting hurt in this process is you. Nobody else
Right.
gets hurt in the process because you will not be comfortable. What I always say
Got
is
it.
that the our core is that of being pure unconditional love. The basis of our
Right.
existence is that we are peace, love, and joy. And
Correct.
if you see, like even if you're feeling angry, it is not possible for us to feel angry continuously for half an hour. After 5 minutes you
Right.
would come down to a state where you're still a bit of peace, or you feel normal.
Right.
You again might get
Absolutely.
into the same cycle, but it's not possible because you and for the soul and for you it's not a comfortable experience to be in those negative emotions of anger, of negativity, of
Absolutely.
non-acceptance. So you are the best judge about yourself in these situations. Is the situation making you comfortable, or is the situation
Right.
not making you comfortable? And that's how you actually realize whether you are getting into this constant cycle of misery and suffering, or are you leading yourself towards a path where which would provide you with a lot more peace and stability in your life.
Got it. So it's a choice, like you keep saying. It's always
Yes.
our choice, and any sort of karma is created specifically by the choice that we make in terms
Yes.
of how we react to any event, any person,
Yes.
or any other thing in our life.
Right.
Makes sense?
Absolutely.
Makes super sense. What I would like to add on to this is that my understanding of karma and what I tell all my Bulletproof Happiness community members also is that karma is something that is, it's like a log of things that we need to learn specifically because of our own action. I'll repeat that. It's like a log of things that we need to learn
Yes.
specifically because of our own action. This is how I define it. Now, this does not, as connected to what you were saying, it's not something like it's a bad experience or a good experience. It's
Yes.
specifically something that you need to learn
Learn.
because
Absolutely.
of your own experiences, because of your own actions as such. Now, this
Yeah.
could also be a good lesson, it could also be a bad lesson. But once again, this will be defined by our own mind. Because as you were saying, that there is no absolute good, there is no absolute bad. that
Yes.
is once again something that we, or rather specifically, more specifically, our own minds define something as good or bad. Otherwise,
Yes.
nothing in life is anything until we give it a meaning.
Hmm.
No event is good or bad until we give it a meaning. And the moment we
Right.
begin to give it meaning is when we generate a certain emotion, is when we generate a certain reaction. And that begins the process of creating chains with between us and other people, other individuals. And that's what then starts creating what we call as karmic lessons. That's what is karma for me.
Right.
Made sense to
Uh,
you?
I would slightly like to, I mean, I slightly differ in the opinion that instead of just the conscious mind, it's the soul. Like I was saying, that, a soul will always be putting us in situations where we are learning. So the
Okay.
lessons don't come from the conscious mind, it comes from deep within, from the soul.
Right.
And the physical reality that manifests then is what we have chosen to grow through. When we
Right.
get into our expectations that this should have been different, like in the
Right.
same example, if the girl would have been adamant that, like, I can't do away with this person in my life, I can't move on to a new set of people, I'm adamant about that, the only person
Right.
who would be suffering is that particular girl only would be suffering in that. So when
Right.
when we create expectations of how our reality should be is when we start living an illusionary life for us, and that is what gives
Right.
suffering. There is no other suffering. The soul does not want us to
Super.
suffer
Yeah,
or
I agree with
experience
that.
misery at all. Yeah.
In a nutshell, we create our own suffering because we create our
That's
own
true.
reality.
That's true.
Because
Yes.
we have a mind which puts labels. That's the process. We create our
Right.
suffering because we create our own reality because our mind creates a label for any event in our life. And that's also the basic cycle through which karma is created. Because whenever that reality is makes us feel that this person is bad, that's when we create a sort of chain or a connection with that person, and we have to learn a lesson. And the lesson could be anything. The ultimate
Right.
lesson would be, as you said, is to develop unconditional love or to realize that that already exists.
Yes. That's true.
Ultimately, everything will come back to that main base point,
Right.
right? Super, lovely, great. So let's move on to one the most interesting thing now. What are the myths surrounding karma, according to you?
Yeah. So, growing up, the biggest myths were that there is one person who's keeping a log of all the wrong deeds that we are doing, and they're maintaining it. And then, when I do something wrong, the creator would punish me for it, or there will be somebody who's deciding punishments for me. So
Right.
here, this is a myth. Actually, the creator is nothing but the energy of pure and unconditional love, and all of us are a
Okay.
manifestation of that same energy. And
Okay.
it is because we are so sensitive to energies. Somebody might not believe it when they're in the middle of a situation which is giving them a lot of suffering, especially through somebody else. But
Right.
even when we feel that we've hurt somebody, you see how immediately we would get into the action of making amends. It could be as
Okay.
simple as, I hurt my sibling, and then the next day I take chocolates for them to kind of say that, I'm sorry I hurt you, but here is
Right.
me trying to pay back in some way. So that's how
Right.
sensitive the soul is. And even
Right.
if we believe that we've hurt somebody, again, we would create this belief of guilt for the other person, and we ourselves
Okay.
would create this necessary set of payback for the other person. So it's not
Right.
an external person who is doing this, it is us
Okay.
and our soul that is doing this for ourselves, again, so
Okay.
that we would be put in the same situations again and again till the time we have learned the lesson which we had not learned earlier, because we had externalized the situation completely, and we had put the blame on the other person for our own experience. So
Got
this
it.
is the number one myth I think that there is. And the second is that
This
we
myth
are.
basically, this
Yeah,
myth,
please
if
go
I
ahead.
were to summarize, is that there is it's not one person who's keeping a log, like you said. That's
Yes.
the myth number one in a gist, in the nutshell,
Right.
right?
Right. That's
Got it.
correct.
Super. What's the second one according to you?
And second is again, when people are suffering due to any
Okay.
experience in their life, and they associate it with karma, then they feel that this is something that they have to live for lifetimes and lifetime after
Okay.
lifetime. So again, this is a myth. You don't have to suffer for lifetimes. In fact, suffering ends the moment you accept the situation and accept that this situation is you. It's a manifestation of you. And once we
Okay.
focus on learning the lessons from that situation, A, the suffering will end in that very moment. B, you will also be able to learn the lessons and grow through that situation in a in a much more graceful manner and very smoothly too. So
Got
yeah,
it. So karma is not fatal basically.
it's
It
not.
does come to an end. It's not like a
Yes,
eternal sentence, is
yes,
what you're trying to
absolutely,
say.
absolutely, yes.
Super. Excellent. That's definitely one of the things that I would have also said from my side. Any
Yeah.
other myths according to you?
I can't remember any, but if somebody else has any questions or you have any question regarding, any myths that you've heard about it or any clarification that you would require for karma, I'd be happy to, share my views and insights about it.
Super. So I'll add on one thing from my side on this, that what I believe is this is a misunderstanding slash a myth, that karma is created basis actions. Let me repeat that for everybody. Karma is created basis whatever action I took. Now, what is the myth or the misunderstanding in this is that it is not the action that actually defines your lesson or your karma. It is more specifically the intention behind the action which defines your karma or your lesson. Let me make this
Absolutely.
clearer with an example. So you have two people. One is a murderer and one is a doctor. Both people have a knife in their hand. Both people will be performing the same action of
Yes.
cutting someone, or in a crude way saying stabbing someone.
Right.
One person is doing it with the intention of causing harm, and another person is performing the exact same action with an
Yes.
intention of possibly saving a life.
Absolutely.
So, in both cases, the lesson that the person has to learn, if at all, if at all there is a lesson, it will be very different. So therefore, it cannot be just the action. Like if I say something rude to someone,
Yeah.
what is the intention behind it? My intention may be that I want that other person to actually benefit from that criticism. Another person may have an intention of putting the other person down. So, whatever the intention is behind that particular action is what defines the level of karma and the lesson that one needs to learn. Going back to that example, the murderer will have a very intense lesson to learn, whereas the doctor will probably have a less will the lesson in this case for him would be, or something that he would receive for doing that action would be receiving similar support from other people in future, because his intention was to save. So that's the one misunderstanding which I took several years to understand, and I thought I would add on over here. Anything you would like to add to this?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, sometimes we also are taking actions with the intention of we could be like doing it with the intention of helping somebody, but in
Okay,
my experience, I've always also seen doctors who would, obviously, a doctor, the only purpose that there is to a doctor is to help their patient, right? But when
right.
something goes astray, whether it was because of their behavior or not, and something happens to the some inadvertent event happens to the patient or the patient dies, I have seen people also carry beliefs that regarding having, say, like, it could be one belief that I killed that patient. So
Okay.
actually that happens. So here, I mean, that's why I said, so karma is not about good or bad, it's about how you are perceiving a situation. And sometimes that emotion is so much that in even despite the fact that the doctor didn't do anything intentionally or didn't even do anything to the other person, they might accumulate that guilt that, this person died because of me. So
True.
those kind of beliefs also stay with us in the subconscious and also impact our physical reality. This is something that I have experienced as my in my professional life as a healer. So there will be
Absolutely.
instances coming up wherein the person did not do anything negative at all, and yet they still carry that belief till the time until the time the belief was healed. They would be
Right.
experiencing immense guilt in their profession, or however that belief was related to their physical reality. So yeah, that's
Super.
what I wanted to add to it.
Makes sense, absolutely. So it's always the intention behind an action. And what is an intention? An intention is just a thought. Like you were saying, if a thought that was generated by the doctor was of guilt, then his karmic lessons will be according to that. Whatever
Yes.
future has to happen with him will be according to that.
Right.
So, of course, along the same lines, because guilt is an emotion which is preceded by a thought, and that combined is what makes the intention behind an action, your thoughts and your emotions. So I believe that this is exactly a furthering of the same thing that we were talking about earlier. And yeah, thanks for adding that on, makes a lot of sense. Super. Let's move on to the next thing then. I would like to ask you, Mridu, what are your tips for people who are dealing with challenging life events now that they've understood a little bit about karma, etc.? What are the
Yeah.
tips that people can apply in their life for dealing with challenging life events?
Yeah. So Aman, this is something that I practice in my life, and I started my journey as a healer. I learned serenity, surrender, way of healing and living life back in 2012. So it's almost been
Okay.
more than 9 years that I've been doing this and practicing, and that's why I say this, that uh, phase,
Can you
that this
can you just repeat
situation.
that one? We lost you a bit.
Oh, okay, sorry. So what I was saying is that what I would like to suggest to people facing a challenging situation is that to remind yourself that if there is a situation that has manifested in your life, it is a manifestation of your energies. Okay. There is something that you have to learn in them. So instead of completely rejecting the situation, try and start understanding the situation. Try and understand how it's impacting you, whether that can be dealt with
Right,
or not. So basically, you
right,
have to lead yourself to accepting the situation. It's all about that,
right,
because
right,
whatever is manifesting in our life is actually it is a reflection of our own energies. So I
right.
think acceptance of our situation as it is the key to not only growing through that situation, but also coming out of very challenging situations that are causing us suffering and misery. Yeah.
Superb. Acceptance, what I tell my Bulletproof Happiness community members is acceptance dissolves all psychological pain into itself. Let me repeat
Absolutely.
that for you. Acceptance, and more specifically, acceptance at a mental and emotional level, dissolves all psychological pain into itself.
Right.
And one more thing that I would like to add on over here is don't get confused between acceptance and resignation to an event or a happening in life. A lot
Absolutely.
of people ask me, all those who are in my coaching
Yeah.
programs, they ask me, you're guiding us to accept a situation, but if I accept it, then I won't take any action. So here's the mistake that people make. And
Absolutely.
specifically with this, for this tip that we are giving people to handle challenging life events, I want all of them to understand this very, very well. When you accept a situation, you are accepting it at a mental and an emotional level. At a physical level, you could very well be taking action,
Yes.
finding solutions, making changes to your physical environment. But what's happening at a mental and emotional level is what defines your level of acceptance. And therefore, when you can bifurcate your or understand acceptance in this two pronged way, you realize that you are very welcome to be taking action, and you should be taking action when you are on this planet and when given bestowed with this beautiful body which is here, which can perform, which can do things. Take action, but at that mental and emotional level, back that up with a sense of acceptance. Because if you do not, then you will always have some form of suffering going on. And
Yeah.
suffering is, even any physical suffering is only made a reality when we accept it at the mental and emotional level. So everything comes back to the same thing, developing acceptance at that mental and emotional level. And this is easier said than done, but but it's completely possible. And people need to be consistent with this.
Yeah.
They need to be consistent. This reminds me of my three C's, the three pronged approach to my coaching method, which people might appreciate or understand why I'm bringing this up right now. The first C is coaching, which is the inputs that you and me are giving right now. You are giving from your experience, I'm giving from my experience.
Right.
But the second C, which is equally important, is consistency. People have to be consistent in applying those methods, otherwise, they will not see the result. It'll be like, oh, feeling good for one day and then taking two steps back because the old patterns will take over. So the
Right.
second C of consistency in life and taking this wisdom and applying it is as crucial as the first C. And the last C for the benefit of everybody is that they should always put themselves in a community. C is for community, which is of like-minded people so that they can support each other on this journey. One, they motivate each other, they help each other, they keep each other on the path. That's how it works. That's when this is combined,
Yeah.
then you get complete transformation. So this is important, and this is the way that I structure all my programs. And this
Correct.
is the key, that has been the key to my own transformation, I would say. If I look back at me 10 years ago and how I am now, the main reason is that knowledge may not be very different from 10 years ago. It's simply the fact that I was consistently able to apply it and I was able to keep myself in an environment or a community which facilitated continuous growth. This is very important,
Correct.
right? And I think that could also be a tip for people that if you are in a challenging life situation and you are committed to your own happiness and you are committed to your own personal growth, then surround yourself with a community that is going to keep you uplifted,
Yeah.
that is going to keep you learning continuously. You don't want somebody just to be listening to you and saying, yes, you should suffer. Yes, or rather, yes, you are suffering and you should be sad and you should be depressed. That's not the community we're talking about. We're talking about a community which is going to use this situation to help
Yeah.
you to grow and to become better,
Yeah.
to
I
learn from
yeah.
life and use this experience to become move ahead on this path, I would say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, I understand that,
Go
and
ahead, go ahead.
it's very important to have people who will be ready to support you. But I feel that the ultimate goal should be to be able to face any person in your life, even though they seem to be someone who's challenging your current notions about life, even if
Right,
they seem to be someone who's negatively impacting you. So again, we come back to the same thing, that if we are kind of restricting ourselves to people who we feel are like-minded, we still might be stopping our growth or restricting our growth, because growth, like I said, is all about acceptance. If you understand that
right,
you are naturally empowered to deal with any situation, then the person who is standing in front of you cannot impact you negatively. I mean, then
right,
you are empowered to deal with any situation as it comes in your life. And
right,
that's the difference between like I mean, it's okay to accept your non-acceptance, that this is something that
right,
I don't like. But ultimately, I feel that even that transforms to us understanding. Maybe even we might not agree with the other person's notions or perceptions about life, but we can still reach to the level wherein we accept that that is that person's journey, and my thought process
correct,
is different. But in that situation, that stops triggering you, or that stops harming you in a negative way, or causing you any kind of unrest or negativity.
right.
So yeah, that's what we teach at Serenity Surrender. That the ultimate goal is not
Super.
to go to the Himalayas and sit there and be
Absolutely.
alone. It's it's to be able to accept and be with everyone around you, even if their way of thinking might be different from you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's all that I wanted to add
This,
to this.
yeah, this reminds me of one of my mottos that I want to be a spiritual person who drives a Ferrari. So that means you develop, you grow spiritually, but you
Yeah.
don't go to the mountains like you said.
Yeah.
Stay here,
True.
do your duties, enjoy the whatever worldly things are available, but of course with
Absolutely.
a sense of unattached or this non-attachment, if I may say so. That also does what is attachment? Attachment is basically the basis of any form of suffering because nothing in our life is permanent, but our mind makes us get attached to it. And the moment that thing disappears from our life is when we begin to suffer. Whether this is with people in our life, whether this is with material possessions in our life, whether it's with respect to our own physical body, our looks, whatever. Everything is in a constant flux. But when
Transience.
we
Yeah.
get attached to, those things, or rather when our mind gets attached to it, that's when we set ourselves up for suffering. So that's also one of the tips that I would like to add on for people who are going through a challenging life event. And the crux of this tip is that never get too happy when an event is bad, and never get very happy when an event is good in your life. Never get too sad when an event is bad, because both will at some point pass, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Um, yeah.
That's something that we don't realize when it's happening. Because at that point it looks like, oh, this is so bad, and we forget that this is not going to be there forever. We only get so absorbed with that particular happening in our life that it feels to us that life is either very good or life is rather very bad at that point. That is
Here,
one thing that we need to recognize.
yeah, I would just like to add one thing here, Raman, which is that, I think what I have experienced in our life is that whatever we have imbibed within, or we
Yeah,
carry conviction in other terms for something in our life, or worthiness for something in our life, it will always remain there. And if something is actually going away, or we are experiencing that loss or fear of losing that aspect, there is still learning hidden over there for us. And that's why I think we
right,
fear attachments, whereas attachments are not to be feared. They are meant to be they are meant to help us to recognize ourselves. They're supposed to be facilitators. So you know how
correct,
there are certain things in our life which we know will be there for us, and that's why our focus never goes there. The focus goes on
right,
challenges, because that's
right,
where we are supposed to, that's the area from where we are supposed to learn. So I would just say, don't be afraid of attachments. It's okay
right.
to feel attached, but yeah, when we are stopping ourselves from growing because of that attachments, is where I think we need to just maybe allow that transformation to happen. Yeah, that's something that I would like to add to this.
Interesting point, makes sense. We
Yeah,
should not fear attachments, of course,
yeah,
and we should try to understand the basis of attachments and have healthy attachments, let's say. A healthy attachment is something that will help you to learn your lesson and to grow in your spiritual progress, I would say, both personal and spiritual progress. Lovely, makes sense. So if there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free. And if anybody has any questions also, they can ask us, because we are now coming to the conclusion of our chat
yeah.
today.
Right.
And I've had a really pleasant experience. I've learned a
Me
lot.
too.
I've added on a lot from your experiences. And I
Absolutely, me
trust
too.
that you, lovely, that sounds good. So I think we can bring this to a conclusion then today. And I want to
Absolutely, we can do that.
And I want to thank you, Mridu, for your time. And I look
Thank
forward to a lot more interactions with you.
absolutely,
And
me too.
and before we conclude, I'll just tell the audience that if there's feel free to connect with Mridu or me further. If there's anything that you would like us to help you with in your life, any challenge that you are going through, if any
Yes,
form of healing that you're looking forward for, any form, if you wish to boost your happiness levels in any way, we are here and you can feel free to connect with us.
absolutely,
So on both our behalves, I invite anybody to connect with us further beyond this session. We are always available.
absolutely. Are we taking questions from the audience right now,
Yeah,
or are
maybe
we?
just leading. It looks like people are
Nobody is,
there,
yeah,
they don't have any questions right now, so it's we
sure.
can conclude this session.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
Mridu.
so
Thanks
much.
once again. Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you for
We will
inviting
connect
me. It was
again.
my pleasure too. And it was a very enriching session. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you. See
Bye.
you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for
Bye.
joining.